We did a number of videos last year about using Miracast to wirelessly project from your Surface to a TV, a projector, or even another Surface. It's a great feature of Surface. In fact, it's built into almost any Windows 10 device, and in fact many Android devices too. And thanks to some special capabilities in Windows 10, it's even possible to share a mouse, keyboard, touch and pen input from your second display back to your Surface. It's pretty cool, it's pretty reliable, and it's easy to use. But like all technology, things can go wrong. So in this video, we'll walk you through everything that can trip you up using Miracast. Now make sure that you watch our other videos on Miracast first. We'll leave some links in the cards and in the description below, and we'll put some chapters into the video so that you can jump around to the bit that you need. Miracast is a networking technology. It was created by the Wi-Fi Alliance. That's the same group that governs the standard of Wi-Fi that we all so much rely on. It's a network technology, and there are a number of layers to the process, and those layers tend to reflect the points at which things can fail. So let's get into them. The first step is discovery. When we try to project with Miracast, it scans the Wi-Fi spectrum for available Miracast receivers. This step does not require you to be connected to any wireless network at all. In fact, that's one of the great things about Miracast, that it can be made available to anyone without granting any access to your network. But it does require your Wi-Fi cards to be enabled or switched on both devices. So make sure that Wi-Fi is turned on first. In Windows, to find an available Miracast receiver to project to, we use the Connect menu. You can get there through the Action Center on the right side of your Windows taskbar, or press Windows and K on the keyboard together. That's a handy keyboard shortcut to remember. It's important to wait a few seconds here for that scan to happen. Your paired Bluetooth devices will show up here instantly, but the Miracast devices will take a few more seconds to show up, so just be patient. If you're projecting to a TV, display or projector and your device doesn't show up, then make sure it's turned on and check that the input on your projector or TV is set up so that the Miracast receiver's image is showing up on the display. If it's not, then I'll need to leave you to figure out how to do that with your TV or projector. They're all a bit different, so check your manual. If you're trying to project to another PC, like your Surface for example, and it still doesn't show up, take a look at the settings for projecting to this PC in the Windows Settings app on the device that you want to project to. There are three options under this setting: always off, available everywhere on secure networks, available everywhere. Now this option is not very clear or self-explanatory, so I'll do my best to explain it. If you set this option to available everywhere on secure networks, it will only show up as a Miracast receiver when both of your devices are connected to secure Wi-Fi networks. The network must be encrypted, for example with WPA2 security. If you are connected to an unsecured or open Wi-Fi network, then it would turn this feature off and you won't be able to project to it at all. Also, if you're not connected to a Wi-Fi network at all, this will not work using this setting. But generally, this is the recommended setting that you should use. If your two devices are both connected to a secure network, but the receiver is still not showing up, then check the Wi-Fi network properties on the device that you're trying to project to. If your Wi-Fi network profile is set to public, then Miracast won't work. The public network profile setting blocks the Miracast connection. Setting this to private means that a slightly more relaxed firewall setting will be applied, and it should start to show up. Set the option to available everywhere if your devices are going to be connected to an unsecured Wi-Fi network when you want to project, or if you're not going to be connected to a Wi-Fi network at all. This setting is there to prevent random people from projecting to your PC while you're somewhere in public, for example at a hotel, an airport lounge or a shopping center. So it's usually best to select available everywhere on secure networks unless you're actually trying to use this feature in one of those places. Stop the press. The day after I shot this video, my Surface Pro finally got the Windows 10 2004 update. So I went to project to my Surface and it didn't work anymore. In the Settings app, under Project to this PC, everything was grayed out. Same on my Surface Go, Pro X and Studio. So after a quick bit of investigation, I discovered that the app required to Miracast to your PC was actually removed in this update. So even if you've been happily using it until now, it's no longer there anymore after you run this update. Interesting. Now it turns out that it's pretty easy to fix. The instructions are right there on the screen. To install the app, open the Settings app, go to Apps, Optional Features, and add a feature. Look for the wireless display app and install it. Now you're back up and running, but with this additional caveat. You'll need to run the Connect app on the device that you want to project to in order for any of this to work. So this kind of changes the process from here on in, but it's fairly manageable. Just run the app when you need to project. Now I can imagine that'll be a bit of a pain for some situations. It's an extra step and it requires physical intervention. So why did Microsoft remove this feature? Well, it's a great feature to use, but out of the 1 billion Windows 10 users, how many people do you think would use it? Even if there were 1 million people like you and me, that's still only 0.1%. So I'm pretty comfortable with the fact that they should make this feature optional from here in. You can imagine that removing it makes the standard Windows 10 install about 3 megabytes smaller, which doesn't seem like much. But when you multiply that out by 999 million and figure that doing this saves a heck of a lot of data and power consumption and wasted space on devices, I think it's a good idea and they made a good move. We'll just download it when we need it. On the other hand, the change of process, that could be a little harder to get used to. The next thing to check is the power option. This PC can only be discovered for projecting when it's plugged into a power source. If this one is set to on, it simply won't work unless you're plugged into power. But if you turn it off, then it will work on battery as well. But that of course has a battery life impact. So don't turn this one off unless you have to. And remember to turn it back on when you're done to save power. Another thing that can stop you from projecting to your Surface is your network adapter settings. Most Wi-Fi adapters, like the ones in your Surface, will transmit on 2.4 or 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks. However, if you've limited your Wi-Fi adapter to only work on 5 GHz, Miracast will not work. Miracast can work across 5 GHz connections. We'll talk more about that, but it needs 2.4 GHz to initiate the connection. So if you've disabled 2.4 GHz on either device, then it won't work. So if you've checked these things out, well, hopefully your device is now showing up in the Connect list. So let's take a look at where things can go wrong next. If you're trying to connect to your Surface and it shows up in the Connect menu and you click on Connect, but nothing happens, there are a few things to check. If you're trying to connect to an older monitor or projector, you could encounter issues with resolution and refresh rates. For example, if you're trying to project 60 Hz in 4K, but your monitor doesn't support that refresh rate and resolution combination, well, it could fail. If you're having issues at this point, you might want to try a lower refresh rate or a different resolution. On the projecting PC, open your display settings and you can change the resolution there. To change the refresh rate, go to the bottom of the display settings page and go to Advanced Display Settings. Something else that could cause an issue at this point though is antivirus, VPN or security software. Anything that could prevent networking could cause an issue here. Now I haven't used third-party antivirus for at least 10 years because the inbuilt Windows Defender does a pretty good job. But if you have some sort of antivirus or VPN software on your Surface and you're not able to connect, maybe try without it. Disable it or remove it, whatever you need to do. On the Project Settings page, you can also set a PIN number for extra security. Now when you attempt to project, the Connect app will pop up on the receiving PC and it will show a PIN number. And you'll need to type that PIN number into the box on the Project menu on the projecting PC. If you've got the latest version of Windows 10, then you can skip this next section because although the option that will show is there, it no longer works, it does nothing, it no longer applies. So skip forward. If you've got an older version of Windows 10 on your computer, then follow these next instructions. You should see a pop-up on the receiving device. Connect, your name, is attempting to project. You can simply click on OK to allow the connection. But one of my favorite features in Windows is Focus Assist. I leave it on all of the time. And it's going to block this pop-up, but fortunately you can still watch for it in the Action Center. So make sure that you watch the Action Center and accept the connection there. Or you can just turn off Focus Assist and then you'll get the pop-up on the screen. The pop-up itself is a little problematic. There are 4 options. Always allow, allow once, block once, always block. The tricky part is that these responses may not work as you expected depending on your project settings. On the receiving PC in the project settings page, take a look at the drop-down Ask to project to this PC. The default setting, every time a connection is requested, will force this pop-up to appear every time regardless of what you select in the dropout list on that pop-up. If you set it to first time only, you'll still get the pop-up, but if you select always allow, in future it won't prompt you for that connection anymore. If you've tried all of the steps to this point and the first connect fails, try again. The second time usually works. Once you've connected the 2 PCs together, the first time, I've found that connecting them from that point forward is usually pretty reliable. So, Miracast is pretty handy tech, but like all things wireless, it can be a little laggy, especially when compared to a cabled solution. So many have asked, can I plug the Surface in, for example with a USB-C or DisplayPort cable, and make it a screen that way instead of using Miracast? And the answer to that question is no. Windows currently doesn't support that type of connection. Maybe it will in the future. And if you really want to see that introduced, make sure that you jump into the Feedback app on Windows 10 and suggest the idea. But what I will show you is how to optimize the Miracast connection for best performance. It won't be perfect, but it will be the best that we have. To optimize Miracast requires us to dive a little deeper into the technology. The standard was created with the intent to allow you to project wirelessly just like using a VGA or HDMI cable. When you go into the office of any big organization, they don't usually give you access to their corporate Wi-Fi. If they do, it's usually guest Wi-Fi access, and it doesn't allow you to connect to their printers or any of their infrastructure at all. And that's for good reason, security. That said, they'll usually let you bring your laptop in and let you plug into their projector for your PowerPoint presentation. So in order for Miracast to work, just like a projector, the protocol was designed to create a point-to-point network connection between 2 devices just for screen sharing. So thanks to this design, you can actually allow people to project to your Miracast-enabled displays without giving them access to anything on your network. This is called peer-to-peer networking, and it's the basis for the connection between your Surface and most Miracast-enabled displays or adapters, like the Microsoft wireless display adapter that I use. This peer-to-peer connection will use 2.4 GHz wireless to establish the connection and carry the display data. From a speed perspective, it'd be better to use 5 GHz Wi-Fi instead of 2.4 GHz. 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks are generally faster, they're less prone to saturation because they can carry more data. And since we're usually pretty close to the device that we're projecting to, we don't have to worry too much about range, which can be reduced on 5 GHz. If you're getting a bit of display lag or interference with Miracast projecting, 5 GHz is often the way to fix it. Miracast will look for and negotiate a connection using that 2.4 GHz link. But if you're connected to a 5 GHz network while you're projecting, even if it's not the same one, then Miracast will carry the display data across the 5 GHz band. So you should be able to get better performance and reliability from your display sharing if you're connected to a 5 GHz network. If your Wi-Fi area is extremely busy and you're still finding performance issues, you might want to do a bit of an investigation around the Wi-Fi channels in your environment. It's a little bit above my pay grade, so I'll leave a link to a PDF that you can read from the Miracast experts, which is a company called Actiontec. I talked to one of the Actiontec technical team at the Microsoft Inspire conference a couple of years ago, and I was really blown away by their technical expertise. They know their stuff, and they helped me to quickly diagnose and get to the bottom of a really widespread issue that caused the Surface Pen to disconnect a wireless Miracast session over a quick conversation. So they're not sponsoring this video, by the way, but they're the people to look for professional Miracast gear. Another factor to consider here is that in addition to peer-to-peer connections, the Miracast standard includes an over-infrastructure mode that allows it to broadcast the screen sharing traffic across an existing network connection. Now, with Windows 10 devices, this is automatic, and you can see this for yourself by watching the Task Manager. If you connect to a Miracast device that is not on your network, on the Performance tab of your Task Manager, you'll see a virtual network adapter appear. But if you connect two devices that are on the same network, you won't see that. That's because the display data is going to be carried across your existing network or over your infrastructure. So to extend this, infrastructure mode means that you can actually Miracast across a cabled Ethernet network too. So in a large organization, this could be very handy. You still need Wi-Fi on to set up the connection, but if you're on the same LAN, your traffic will be sent over the wired network. This is potentially something that you can use to make the connection between two Windows 10 devices work more reliably. It's also a mode that a device like the Surface Hub can take advantage of. Advanced Miracast receivers like the Actiontec Screenbeam 1100 use this too. By the way, if you want to wirelessly enable displays in your organization, that thing is absolutely the top of the pile. It does Miracast, Google Cast, and Apple AirPlay all across the one manageable device. We'll put an Amazon affiliate link to that one below. Now, I was excited when I learned about the possibility of doing Miracast over Ethernet, because the thing that people often want to improve when projecting to their Surface is the pen and touchscreen responsiveness. Now, as we said at the start, Miracast enables keyboard, mouse, touch, and pen input to travel from the projector back to the originating PC. So for example, if you had a non-touchscreen laptop, you could project it up to the Surface Hub using Miracast, and then you could use the Surface Hub pen to draw in your programs back on the laptop. Same thing with projecting to any Surface, in fact. The trouble is that there is a noticeable lag associated with drawing from one device to the other wirelessly. You can get away with that in a PowerPoint presentation, but you wouldn't want to take notes this way, let alone draw. Unfortunately, using Miracast over Ethernet will not improve this, at least in my experience. Over my gigabit wired network, the performance was actually worse than using Wi-Fi. So, unfortunately, we don't currently have an Apple Sidecar-like experience that allows you to draw with your Surface Pen onto your desktop computer. Like I said, if you're looking for that capability, jump into the feedback app and put in your 2 cents. Your feedback definitely shapes the decisions that get made about product development at Microsoft, so make sure your voice is heard. But bear in mind that this technology, Miracast, is not Microsoft technology. It's not designed to be Apple Sidecar at all. This tech predates that idea by many years, 7 years in fact, and its intent is very different. So connecting from a PC to your Surface as a second display with Miracast is great for email, browsing documents. It's even okay for video conferencing and watching videos. The Miracast is great for presentations too, but it's not a great solution for note-taking and drawing. Instead, for the time being, it might be better to just separate those tasks. For note-taking, rather than trying to project, you'd be better off using OneNote on your Surface together with OneDrive for easy synchronization. Same thing for watching videos and drawing. If you can work locally and sync, do that instead. Personally, I use my Surface Pro as a second screen when I'm running online training sessions with teams. That way I can share my screen and still have a separate screen with my video and notes in front of me on the Surface Studio. One extra thing that I recently discovered is Miracast on Xbox. I'm almost embarrassed to say that I missed the memo on this one. I've wanted to Miracast to my Xbox for years now, and it's been a while since I researched if it was possible. Because I've been using the Microsoft Wireless Display dongle for the last year, plugged into my Xbox, and using the OneGuide app to project to my TV. It's all a bit complicated. But about a year ago, Microsoft released the Wireless Display app that we use here on PC on Xbox too. And that actually allows you to project to your Xbox directly with no extra dongle required. To Miracast to Xbox, you'll need to download the Wireless Display app published by Microsoft from the Xbox Store. Open that app to project with your Windows PC or Android device to your Xbox. So if you're projecting to your Surface or you're using a Miracast adapter, tell us how you're doing it in the comments below. And if you'd like to look a little deeper at the Miracast protocol, I'll put a link to a video called Miracast Explained by Code Monkey Ricky from 2013. It's a really great explainer video with an old-fashioned dry erase whiteboard. I'd also like to acknowledge Microsoft MVP Barb Bowman from digitalmediafile.com. She's got lots of great information on Miracast on her website, as well as everything Surface support related. She also does a brilliant job on the Microsoft forums. And lastly, I'd like to acknowledge Actiontec for the Miracast information on their website too. Wow, if you've made it this far, thank you. Please hit like, subscribe, and share our content with your colleagues. Miracast, try and look at the camera, Brett. Infrastructure mode means that you can actually Miracast. Infrastructure mode means that you can actually Miracast, come on. Shares some brilliant information on